A friend and I recently chatted about the challenges of writing a new world without giving people a lexicon up front. There are some people who love the shit out of a good infodump, and I am not one of them.
Joker.
Sir, yes, sir.
4212, basic military journalism. You think you're Mickey Spillane?
Sir, I wrote for my high school newspaper, sir.
My friend was asking me this because they thought I'd done some fairly epic world building in the Blade of Glass series, but didn't think I'd given them a private wiki. My advice comes in 3 parts. 1. Leverage the familiar. 2. Give information as and when a character would experience it, and leverage this to create anticipation. 3. Pretend like the reader already knows everything anyway. Let's start with something familiar. There's a scene in Knight's Favor that's a semi-riff from a police procedural. Our hero is in a police interrogation room, double mirror and all. This scene leads to a pretty epic shootout involving another werewolf and our hero trying to save A, himself, and B, cops while this happens. We've all seen a million police procedurals and could finger paint the interior of an interrogation room without ever seeing one. I don't have to do any world building at all for this scene to exist in your mind rent-free. It's already familiar to you. Let's choose a harder example. In Blade of Glass, the Fabrand, one of the 3 main races, can't speak. They use sign language. I don't have to explain what sign language is to you or how it works. What I've done is create a non-verbal race and leverage something familiar you already know, and now that's taken root in your mind. There are other examples you can use for familiarity. If you want elves and orcs in your world, go with God. That's familiar enough that you don't need to explain very much. The excellent The Grey Bastards by Jonathan French does this as well. His heroes are orcs, so he doesn't need to tell you what an orc is. All he has to do is tell you how his orcs are different. You've already got the rest before you even open the book. Okay, so we know what the familiar is like. How does a character experience things, and why is that important to world building? I read a story a while ago where the main character was an orphan. They were a secret agent, they were based in another country, they'd had a traumatic vehicle accident, and they were unlucky in love. The bad part of this was that it all arrived in the same paragraph. The problem with this approach is it's not how people interact with the world, usually. People don't sit there with all those things going on in their head in a single moment. We, mostly, experience things in a linear manner as and when they're important to us. Now, let's use a scene from Blade of Glass to describe how we do this and create anticipation for what's to come. Here is a flashback scene where Genevieve meets her tree and Israel. Despite being cleverly called Chapter 1, this is actually the 2nd chapter after The Prisoner. Now, let's see what we learned. This tree was important. It was inside a cool fort, there are monsters called Vemin, and that Israel is cool. We also learn what Genevieve was like as a kid, skinny, knock-kneed, and that Fabrand, ref above, are awesome. They are also Tresward and something called the Light. All of this is experiential, as the character is following this train of thought. There's more to come, though. Exactly what are the Vemin? Why does this fort exist? Does Israel have a job other than being a cool dude? What became of Genevieve after Chapter 1? And how does the Light work? Are the Tresward for good or ill? We don't learn these things yet because they haven't experientially happened to Genevieve, but we build expectation they'll be answered, which drives anticipation of the next world-building components. There's another element we can use to create a richer world. It's a cheap trick, but like all cheap tricks, it often works when nothing else does, like when you just haven't had the runway to tell the reader what they need to know. I mean, they don't, but let's pretend. In Chromed Upgrade, the first chapter is a kick-ass scene in a cyberpunk bar. During this scene, one of our main heroes, Mason, uses something called a lattice. Now, it would be a total dick move as an author, for me, during the scene where the lattice is being awesome, to press pause and explain what a lattice is. But if I've done my job right in the scene, you can work it out. It's intrinsic to Mason, and the person he's in a tussle with gets it too. If I pretend you know it, well, you don't, but you might feel like you do, and within just a few more pages, you will definitely grok it. Now, you can't do this with everything. I read a Charlie Strauss novel that did this with, like, everything, and I felt like I'd been concussed by the end of the first chapter. But you can do it with a few things, and before you know it, the lie becomes the truth, and the reader knows it. There we have it. My 3 rules to delivering world building without infodumping. And if you want to know how Mason got a Tenko Senshin, well, that'll take a few more chapters. And if you're an author, I'd love to know how you do world building and how you deliver information to your readers. Just pop it down in the comments below. You'll find it right below the like button. Thanks for watching.
Please hang up and try again.